This is the story of how I used these to make this, to finally make this. I'm really leveling up with the cabling patterns. So morning voice problems. Chunky knit sweater. Need I say more? No, but seriously, something I want to do this year is learn more about knitting. And what better way to jumpstart that process than to knit a patchwork sweater with different patterns on every single patch. I'll be learning to read patterns and figure out what all those fancy knitting terms mean, all as a very beginner knitter. My plan is to knit a sweater with chunky sleeves, fill the body with patches, and then add some ribbing on the edges for final touches. Hello! Happy New Year! So, as a part of my 2020 goals, I will be learning many different stitches. I don't know exactly how many patches I'm doing yet, but all my patches are going to be 7 by 7 inches. I need at least 30 patches. I think at some point I'm going to be like, what stitches do I make? So, I'll be using a book for that and many online tutorials that I'll link below. So let's talk about my knitting progress. So I did one pattern of diamonds that I thought was kind of difficult and I messed up a little bit, but like it's okay because I'm kind of going with the mistakes. I think this sweater has too many patches for me to try to work on every single patch perfectly, considering that I want to do 36 different designs for each one. I'm using this book, 400 knitting stitches. This is the pattern that I'm trying to achieve. I think you have to use slightly finer yarn to achieve this look, but I am achieving a look somewhat similar to it. I was not aware that you can make so many different patterns with just 2 stitches, knitting and purl, and I think that's pretty awesome. And reading the pattern is very easy. You can pretty much understand the first time you read it right away if you know those 2 stitches. So I'm very excited that I can read knitting patterns. Now, I don't know how to read crocheting patterns still because I'm not aware of all the lingo. I think I will be on that path soon as well. Hi! Morning voice back at it again, except this time it's not the morning. I've been trying to figure out what does this phrase mean in knitting patterns. Work each stitch in the manner that it presents. So when I looked it up it said knit the knits and purl the purls. But what if I'm trying to make the stockinette design with the V's in some places and I didn't really understand exactly how it works? So I've been experimenting, trying to figure out how it works. This piece perfectly captures exactly the point of when I figured out what the heck that means. This is the second pattern I've tried where I've tried to incorporate that work each stitch in the manner that it presents phrase. And in the beginning, the pattern is definitely there, I'm just doing it incorrectly. Then in the middle, I'm getting better. But there are some other stitches where that should be the stocking V design. I have some knits in between. Then finally, in the last 1/3 of this current progress, I think I'm doing it 100% correctly now. The pattern becomes more pronounced as you go up. This is insane. And now this is like a big advancement in me understanding knitting patterns. So I was kind of in this groove for a while where I didn't understand how to do any of these patterns and I just kept messing up, and I thought maybe I'm not well equipped to learn this part or I'm not there yet, but now I am and I've gotten over that hump. Here are the other little mess ups, but I'm okay with keeping these. It'll be a good memory for me trying to remember all the mess ups I had in my progress of learning everything. It should be all smooth sailing from here, but maybe, who knows? Let's just see what happens. Hello. Okay.
The sky was extremely blue that day, delirious, like flavoured ice. Connell was wearing his jacket, and Helen had her arm wrapped around his. When it came to English, they read out 4 names, alphabetically, and the last one was Connell Waldron. Never met before, and who knew nothing about him. Everything is possible now because of the scholarship. His rent is paid, his tuition is covered, he has a free meal every day in college. This is why he's been able to spend half the summer travelling around Europe, disseminating currency,
Hello! This is a new square I started. This is like a little hexagon design. I really like this and it's pretty easy to make. This book has really great patterns and sometimes it's hard to keep track of what line you're on. So what I'm doing is this. I put a piece of tape and a piece of paper to help me remember what line I'm on. So I'm always looking right above that piece of tape. You only need one, you only need a piece of paper or a piece of tape, but since I have this, it's easy to like remove and you can stick it back on. And I put 2 arrows on this to show what direction I need to follow the pattern. With a lot of these patterns, it's like row 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have to go back up 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's why I have these arrows. So part of it is like this, and then when I'm going back up, I put it like this. I would use like a slightly thick piece of paper because before I had a really thin piece of paper with 2 pieces of tape and that was just very inconvenient to keep on redoing. I like to do these things with one hand. It's so much easier that way. None of my patterns are looking exactly like in the book, but it still looks good, luckily. I also found this needle, which I'm assuming came with one of my knitting needles, who knows when. It's for picking up stitches. I usually just use a crochet hook, which I think is even better than this, but if you don't have a crochet hook, this can do the job. This project has been a little bit of a roller coaster where in the beginning I was making a lot of squares very fast, but now it's slowing down a bit. My pile of squares is slowly growing and that's very motivating because I'm trying to commit to 1 square a day and trying to do stitches that I know already how to do as well and relying on easier stitches. Then hopefully this process will be faster, but I mostly care about how the squares look in the front and the back can be more plain or where I messed up. Because I have that sort of flexibility, I can do more complicated stitches in the front. But I'm very excited to see how this all comes together. So I tried to make some pattern. I don't think it worked, which is why I just opted to do this pattern instead. I'm just embracing these mistakes now. I don't even think it looks bad, actually. It's the next day. I think this time I have finally figured out how to crochet a circle continuously. Okay, hi everyone. I was able to master the increasing crochet circle, but now I have to figure out how to make this rectangle, which I'm struggling with a little bit. On pause from this one, I started a different pattern today. I realized if I'm kind of messing up, just go with it because I have to get through so many squares and I kind of want to move on to the next project, and I am still learning a bunch of these stitches and how to read patterns, so I'm growing, and that's the goal of this project ultimately. I'm trying maybe to do like a square a day from now on because I feel like I'm getting really slow. So let's do this. Today is February 17th. I'm continuing knitting my sweater. I feel like it's going so slow and I thought I'd have more time to kind of like learn a bunch of different stitches, but part of learning some stitches is that the process will be slower. So I've taken up some other projects in the meantime. I am continuing to knit, however. So basically I'm trying to match every rectangle to this one, since this one is what I would call my perfect size. But there is a lot of variation between them, unfortunately. But I think that'll be okay as long as I like kind of line it up properly when I'm about to knit the entire sweater together. I've been exploring some patterns through my 400 Stitches book, as well as just kind of like purling and knitting, because I realize you can make some patterns on your own without really trying that hard even. Today I am wearing my painting smock. I've definitely had this shirt for over 10 years, and sometimes you just need some designated painting clothes.
Well, I don't know your name, but can I call you Mona Lisa? I cannot put your picture on my wall. I just wanna know. Hey!
I'm down to what I believe are my last 2 squares for this entire project, and then I have to put them all together by doing an invisible stitch and then figure out what I'm doing for the sleeves and then do the collar and the bottom. But I think I'm done with the bulk of the project, almost. I'm really leveling up with the cabling patterns, let me tell you. I am way better at understanding what each cable term means, like cable for back, cable for right. That's not the same thing. Who would know? This is the gorgeous, gorgeous pattern I'm working on right now. It is like so beautiful, and when I'm able to finish this pattern, it's gonna look so good. This is definitely gonna go on the front of the sweater. I'm trying to put all the cables in the front because I think the cables turned out really well overall in general. So let's look at these. This piece is so hilarious. You can see I started on the bottom right here because that part is where there's like more confusion and more mess ups, and this project I'm really embracing all the mistakes. Usually I would try to go back and fix it, but this one I'm being lazy and embracing the mistakes. Here you can see the cables become way more well defined, and this part inside the cables also much neater. So clearly, like, you can see my learning curve on this one. I just find that really funny. There are these like weird parts where I don't know if I did it wrong or like the cable just like extremely stretched, but I don't really know what I did. I probably just did it wrong, but anyway, continuing on with the one I'm working on. I do have to say, during most of the project, what I did was binge Wizards of Waverly Place on Disney Channel. Sorry, on Disney Plus. I started with the 3rd and 4th season, and then I went back to finish the 1st and 2nd when that was done, and that was so fun. Like, I'm shocked how much I liked it now as, you know, like someone who's not in the age demographic to watch Disney anymore. But I don't think it was all because of the nostalgia, to be honest. Like, I think it's actually a good show, weirdly enough. I think it's always great to have something to put on when you kind of have the hang of the project already. Morning voice problems. Okay, I still have it. So I'm nearing the end with making the body of the sweater, and I know it looks a little weird. I do want the shoulders to droop. With the sleeves, it'll make more sense when those come back on. All I did for this is use an vertical invisible stitch, which I just like looked up how to do. I attached all these pieces. Some of them are not perfectly miscible, especially because I didn't use a matching color yarn, but with 2 pieces connecting that are 2 different colors, it's hard to like pick which matching yarn to use, but that's okay. Honestly, the only place that's really showing is like in very, very small places that I don't really mind. Something I made a mistake with in my last crochet cardigan was I didn't realize the neck has to be a different height in the back, or else it kind of felt like it was suffocating me. So what I did this time was I watched a video on what to do with necks. They said to raise it on the sides, so that's what I did in the front and the back, and leave it lower in the middle. And I want to do is knit a higher neckline, and I do have circle needles. I just use them for regular knitting, and I'm gonna do that here. I'm gonna try to do the knitting pattern that's purl knit, like with each single knitting stitch, not each row. So hopefully that'll have enough stretch for my head to fit in. And I still have to make the sleeves. I'm thinking about making this sleeve dark brown and then this sleeve this lighter latte brown. And I don't know what to do for the bottom of the sweater yet, what kind of ribbing I'll add, or if I'll add ribbing. I really do want to add ribbing so it gets that puff look right like this at the bottom, but I'm not sure yet. Okay, so I'm making the collar now, and I kind of want to make it like a high-ish neck. I'm not sure if I'm going for a turtleneck yet or not. Just depends on how this will end up looking. This is the first time I'm using my circular needles for actual circular purposes. What I ended up doing is I split the back of the collar into 2 sections so that I can put a button here and close it, and I will be able to get my head in no matter how small the neck actually is because it's not that stretchy. I've been doing slip knit stitches. Now I know what the heck slipping means when you knit. I've been doing that to decrease some stitches, but it's creating some like awkward gaps that I might have to go in with a thread and a needle and close up later on, but I'm sure there's some way to avoid it that I haven't figured out yet. Instead of going like around and around like a normal collar, what I'm doing is going around one way, and this is where that gap is, and then I'm going back around the other way. It's not like the normal collar, but I'm doing it. So this is the round needle, and I introduced this 3rd needle in here to help with going this way and then back this way. Working on the sleeves is pretty easy. I'm just doing knit stitches. It's looking like this so far. I mean, all I gotta do is keep on going until the end where I taper it down, so here we go. I think I recently got the handle of doing continental knitting, which, you know, I'm kind of learning a little bit late into this project. I should have learned earlier, but every time I kept doing it, like, I kept failing on the purl side of it. But do you just see how fast I'm going right now? Like, I barely even have to look at this thing. This is insane. Continental knitting is so much better, but I have to figure out how I can do it with purl stitches and how it will allow me to switch between knit and purl, because I don't know how to do that well with either continental or whatever the non-continental knitting is called. See, this is just a documentation of me learning and figuring out what this knitting lingo is and what all these terms mean, but also what are the best ways for me to go about it, what kind of projects I like doing. Hopefully a few months from now I'm going to look at this and think, wow, what an amateur. And I'll be like much better at knitting and making stuff that I like. But do you see this? This is like a freaking flow. This is amazing. I just love how well this flows now. It took me a while to get used to it, and I'm still getting used to the tension with the string. As you can see, it's getting a little too loose. But overall, I really like this. Now back to watching videos that I was doing before. So here's the sleeve progress. The cool thing about this is that since the shoulders are so droopy, I have to make less of a sleeve. This sleeve is 2 days work of progress. I've been knitting a lot. For me a lot, but maybe not for other people. I think I can definitely finish the arms by the end of the week. It is Wednesday, so I'm trying to finish by Saturday night. It's Friday. I finished the left sleeve of my sweater. You know, it was a little bumpy definitely at the end. With the round needles, it was so difficult to get around the entire armhole, but I eventually did it. I did the cast off by looking up how to get an elastic type of feel at the end so my hand could go through while it's still tight around my wrist. It wasn't really stretchy anyway, so I have to figure out like how I'm gonna do it for the second sleeve a little better. My right sleeve that I started is definitely bigger than the left, but I didn't realize it till now, so I just decreased the stitches. I'm gonna keep going and see if it is okay at the end and it doesn't look too wonky. Hopefully it doesn't, because it was like a lot bigger than the left one. Hey everyone, it's currently the nighttime and I just finished my sweater. This is crazy. There's some small tiny problems with it, but for your sake I'll just show you tomorrow rather than putting this off any longer. So, what do you think? Well, let's talk about it. I think overall this sweater turned out pretty well, even with all my little mishaps. I mean, you know, you can tell one sleeve is somehow bigger and smaller than the other sleeve, but that's something I'll have to go back and fix later. This is what happens when you're like me and you're kind of lazy with it, and it ends up actually being more work when you don't count the stitches. So just don't be lazy in the first run and just do it properly by counting the first time, because that will actually be less work than possibly messing up later and then fixing it. The sweater took me so long that I feel like winter is almost over. But you know, I'm still gonna wear it, and it's still something, like, this is way more practical than my crocheted sweater that I made. Whereas this one, I can wear this every single week, because as you saw through this video, I like to wear the same 5 shirts every single week. My favorite part of this entire project was definitely learning all the cable stitches, because in my opinion, they're one of the most beautiful stitches you can have in knitting that really levels up the look of your projects. As you can see, I did not need to make 36 patches, which I thought I was going to do originally. I only needed to make 18 because the size of my patches got really really big, so if I were to do this again, I would definitely make them smaller so that I could explore more patches and get a different look than this. I noticed that with a lot of patchwork sweaters that I've seen on like TikTok, Pinterest, is that they have 4 patches in the front rather than 3, but I like this 3 look better. My patches were not perfect rectangles by any means, because you can see this is like more trapezoidal than rectangular. So if I were to do the invisible stitches again, I would make sure that I'm not just following the outline of the rectangles, but I'm actually trying to make new rectangular shapes out of my existing patches. Overall, I think the colors work really great together. I wish this dark brown was a little bit less dark. The reason I outlined this in black with the sleeves and the collar is because I thought it would just make it pop more, and I actually want to add a few little details here to tie the whole black scheme together. The bottom has the ribbing, which is not black because I didn't have enough black yarn. It's supposed to be black, but you don't really see it anyway that much, so it's okay. Considering the difficulty of this project, it was mostly pretty easy to make the body. I went with the patchwork sweater rather than doing a regular sweater because this idea was conceptually easier for me to grasp than knitting the body of a sweater without any patches at all. And maybe that will be one of my next projects in this year. I do want to make another sweater now because I realized, oh, okay, it's like not that challenging, or like I think that's my next sort of knitting project or knitting goal, but you know, that takes a while and summer is approaching. Maybe I'll do some summer knitting projects. I'll be continuing my other fiber art ventures in 2021, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, see you. That's all for now. Bye.